Tim Pool has to be able to tell himself, did Donald Trump concealing these business records further another crime? The answer to that is unequivocally yes. Not his own crime, although it was probably his own crime. We're not proving that here. Trump actually did have some limited success today in court in his attempt to get his 34 felony counts overturned. The method of his choosing, or his only method really, is to bring it to the federal courts. So he tried to argue that. The judge said, I'll give you another chance in arguing that in front of the last judge because they overlooked something. So it's by no means significant here. But, Tim Pool still doesn't understand what these felony counts are. And I've listened to Tim Pool talk about this before, but this time he invited a lawyer onto his podcast.
There in U.S. history, a time where the government said, we're going to presume another crime did happen without proving it to...
But I don't want to talk this early, but whatever. The crime did happen. Michael Cohen was convicted of it, right? What was Cohen's conviction about? He was convicted of multiple campaign finance felonies because Donald Trump directed him in his guilty plea. Michael Cohen said this very clearly. Directed him to make those payments to Stormy Daniels and someone else and reimbursed him. He tried to hide the reimbursement by mislabeling it, legal fees. That's the whole thing. Tim Pool is going to try to argue that, they didn't convict Trump of any campaign finance laws. So how can they use this statute in New York law to upgrade him to a felony? And I'll try to explain why they can do that. Part of it's just the statute, right? You can have a problem with the statute, but that's what the statute says.
Criminally charge someone with a crime that requires it.
I don't know about in history. I don't know all that, but
it's a big ask, right?
That's a big ask. I have to be a historian for that more than a legal guy.
My understanding is most analyses of this has been for the first time in U.S. history, a crime which requires a proven underlying crime did not have one, and so obviously the falsification of business records is a misdemeanor, which was beyond its statute of limitations. However, they upgraded to a felony, arguing that there was falsification of business records in furtherance of another crime. The implication being...
Yes, he got it right there. So it is in furtherance. It's not necessarily Donald Trump knowingly and willfully committed that second crime, right? We don't have to prove Donald Trump did that second crime. We have to prove that he did this action intentionally, like not on accident, to further the criminal actions of someone else. That's all we have to prove. And that someone else is Michael Cohen, because he made the final payment. Now, could you, if there was a world where the DOJ went after presidents while they were in office and we didn't have to deal with, immunity and whatever, could Donald Trump get charged with campaign finance? Sure, because, Michael Cohen himself said he was directed by Trump, so that's a lot of evidence right there. But New York State cannot do that. And there's multiple issues with them actually charging him with those underlying crimes. Mostly because it's a higher bar to prove that. You have to prove knowing that he knowingly and willingly did this, that he knew the election law. This statute's different. You don't have to prove that. It's a slightly lower bar.
That's an add-on charge when you have an underlying crime. Like a mafioso is going to murder somebody and then falsifies records after the fact. They say, we're adding this onto that charge of that crime you did. You have felonies that couldn't have happened unless the government has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that the first crime actually happened. So my point with all of this is what may or may not be or what we want to happen or what usually happens clearly is out the window.
Right. The intent to defraud here only required that there's an intent to commit another crime or to conceal another crime, right?
Right. So the issue is the government has to prove in all instances if they're accusing you of a crime.
Right. You don't have to prove the commission of another crime.
It's so he's so wrong here. I don't understand how Tim Pool is so wrong on this. We're not talking about Donald Trump committing a second crime. We're talking about concealing a crime, right? It's not just shuffling papers around. There are consequences to shuffling papers around, especially when you knowingly do it. Not knowingly violate campaign finance laws. Like we can just assume Trump is stupid and that's what the law does, right? Maybe he doesn't know campaign finance law. To hide Michael Cohen's criminal acts. That's all we have to prove.
That it was intended, and that's the difference. So they had to show that. Why did you conceal those documents, the business records? And the reason is to hide campaign finance violations or whatever they decided.
They're going to have to prove that crime. My view is largely...
I'm losing my mind already. They did prove it. What did Michael Cohen plead guilty to? I just don't understand it. We know that this crime happened. He's not even contesting the Stormy Daniels situation because it's so obvious. So the evidence is so strong. The only thing standing between that and Donald Trump being convicted of this stuff is willingfulness and knowingfulness. I don't know what it's called. Consciously breaking the law, and that's a little bit different. Not all statutes have that, right? You don't have to know that murdering is illegal in order for that to be a felony for you. You just have to do it not on accident for it to be first-degree murder. This is very different, right? Falsifying business records have consequences, especially when you're doing it to influence an election.
If our justice system says we can create crimes and charge you with them, that your penalty is upgraded because we implied without proof another crime happened, then our justice system is gone. This is unprecedented. The idea that the state is going to say, and look, we're going to charge you with felonies. We can't unless...
I'll give him this, though. It is unprecedented. The last time that this statute in New York was used was 1970s or something. The laws that we're talking about that Michael Cohen broke are federal. So they had to use a New York state law about elections to translate that to the state level. It does work. It relies on the idea of conspiracy. But the judges ruled that you can use that law, essentially, that statute, as a mechanism to bring those federal, or even they gave some state charges that they could prove, that they could essentially prove Donald Trump's felonies with. There's so many pathways here that they could have went. I think even this lawyer guy doesn't understand them. I don't fully understand them, right? I have not read every single page of this thing.
Another crime, but we don't have to prove the other crime. It's an absurdity.
Well, again, it's only the intent that you tried to conceal something else, like a campaign finance violation. You don't have to prove that you actually committed a secondary crime. You just need to show the intent to conceal it, and that's what they did.
So attempted robbery, attempted murder are also charges.
Attempt is the wrong word. There was no attempt made. Everything was successful, right? Attempt is just it's an incorrect word to use here. It's about intent. They sound very similar, but they don't mean the same thing. I don't know why the lawyer guy was saying attempt. All we have to know is that these business records were fraudulent in the way that they were for a cause that was damaging to society or our elections in a way that statutes have made punishable by felony.
If they're accusing Trump of campaign finance violent, I'll put it this way: if someone attempts to evade taxes or attempts to commit campaign finance violations, are those crimes? Like, would the DOJ go after you if you were trying to
attempted to commit election violations? Yes, and
that's what a conspiracy is, right? If you make an agreement to break a law, then you can essentially get you can that's evidence enough that you had intent to do this, and you can get punished for it. It's a different punishment, but that's what conspiracy is as a law.
When it came to the three possible crimes for Trump, one was that his intent in concealing the business records was to violate the Federal Election Campaign Act. A second one was a violation of New York election law that concerns unlawful conspiracy to promote a candidacy by unlawful means. And the third one was violation of New York tax law.
Go ahead.
All right, finish. What you're saying is, you don't like the fact that they didn't have to prove that there was a violation of any of those three crimes beyond a reasonable doubt, and that should be unconstitutional. The courts...
I would argue it is. It is unconstitutional. Because let me ask you this. Can the government impose a penalty on an individual at any point without proving they committed a crime?
No, but here the statute says that you just have to conceal the records, which he was proven to do so, and then it's just a misdemeanor. But to elevate it to a felony, you don't have to prove a second crime. You just have to prove the intent. You're doing it for a reason, for a bad reason. And when you ask me, are there other examples in the law where that is, I can't name it, but the courts have found that is allowed.
Yeah, I think Tim's problem here is with the statute itself. He says doesn't think it's a good statute, and it's like, how is that lawfare then? Lawfare is what Donald Trump's doing right now, firing prosecutors, replacing them with incompetent people who just do his every bidding, and these cases go nowhere. That's the hallmark of lawfare. Prosecutions that absolutely go nowhere, typically, unless you're in a really corrupt state. But like he still doesn't get it, right? None of these crimes had to have been done by Donald Trump, and they don't have to prove them. Sometimes even if they could prove them, like why wouldn't they do that if they can just charge under this statute and have this intent to conceal line to meet instead of a higher bar?
Understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've just read the various legal analyses on this, both left and right, is that it is the first time in U.S. history an aggravated or add-on charge did not have a proven underlying crime. Now, maybe first time in history is a bold claim, it's an absolute. But my argument would be then, if it is to be argued that the U.S. government or the states have the power to expand or increase your penalties or charge you with a crime without actually proving a component of what requires, then the Constitution is out the window. Then all gloves are off, no holds barred, razor wire in the boxing glove, doesn't matter anymore. The point is,
I mean, I'll say it like this. It's a different crime, right? We're not charging Donald Trump with any of these statutes. We are directly connecting this to Michael Cohen. That's why the New York state law statute is a conspiracy statute. It's basically Michael Cohen doing the crime, Donald Trump concealing the crime. It is all we have to prove is that he intentionally did so, not that he knew what the law was or whatever, all the stuff we had to prove for Michael Cohen. And all that aside, like, no one can look at this Michael Cohen case and not conclude that Donald Trump wasn't completely, the director of it. And Michael Cohen said it himself. He had no reason to do so. And Donald Trump had every reason to do so. Like, every reason to do everything he did there, because Stormy Daniels was like about to release this to the press. She was actively talking about it, like which news or outlets she was going to use.
Falsification of business records is a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. And if the government can prove you falsified your business records straight up, misdemeanor charge. If they know you did and don't pursue that charge, it goes beyond the statute of limitations. They can't bring those charges later on. If the government can say that falsification of business records in furtherance of another crime, mm-hmm. So let's put it like this. Let's segment this. Misdemeanor falsification of business records, let's argue it's a misdemeanor, so it's maximum 1 year probably. On top of that, the felony charge after the fact, in furtherance of another crime, is an extra addition, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got the base level misdemeanor, the upgraded felony expands the penalty. Right. This would imply the government has the ability to impose.
Can't he listen to himself say? Tim Pool has to be able to tell himself, did Donald Trump concealing these business records further another crime? The answer to that is unequivocally yes. There's no arguing with that. He did further and conceal Michael Cohen's crime. Not his own crime, although it was probably his own crime. We're not proving that here. We're proving that these business records were particularly high stake and that he intentionally did so. He intentionally went in to these specific records and said, I'm changing these. And it's not a coincidence that those were the records that were supposed to conceal this campaign finance violation that was trying to influence our elections, or did influence our elections. And we know that from the NDA that Stormy Daniels signed and what Stormy Daniels has said herself.
On you without proving you committed a crime.
Right. Well, you're proving intent. So compare this to conspiracy. If you guys conspire to rob a bank and you actually don't rob the bank, but you had the intent to do so and you agreed, and you did something like, you bought some rope or something to tie someone up, they can bust you for the conspiracy, even though they never proved that you robbed the bank, you completed it. And all this is about intent.
But the conspiracy there is the crime. So that's a little bit different. Right? I mean, this case has conspiracy elements to it, but I don't think it has much to do with conspiracy. Tim Pool is actually right that this is a pretty unique situation where Trump is getting punished for a campaign finance violation, or I mean, if you want to go the weaker routes with the state law, etc. For a campaign finance violation that we cannot prove he himself could get a criminal violation for. And if Michael Cohen, we couldn't prove that he willfully violated that statute, then theoretically, we could not give Donald Trump these felony counts. This is why I think that this case is the weakest. all of Donald Trump's cases, right, against him, I will absolutely argue Jack Smith's documents case, the election interference case. All those are rock solid. I will argue Mueller, that he obstructed the Mueller report in a way that's much more egregious than anything this business records case talks about, or frankly engaged in bribery in his 2019 impeachment scandal. All those are open and shut to me. The civil case is a little bit stronger than this in terms of the evidence, and in terms of the statutes, right? This is definitely the bottom of the barrel when it comes to Trump's cases, but I still think that there's some merit to it. There is an element of, the attorney general just like digging around to see what they can find and charge Trump here, because they did run on that, and that's not ethical. But Donald Trump tried to insurrect the government. I don't have particular sympathy for him when judges do things that aren't ethical, especially when there's an actual basis for him doing the crime. And, he should have been punished for this a long, long time ago, because we all know he did it. So I don't have that much sympathy for him. But just like broad level, I hope that they move on to some other, injustice, because this video is supposed to be more broad. This is an attempt to bring Michael Cohen's known crime into the New York State jurisdiction. That's all you need to know about this. And the reason that they can't charge this specifically is because it's a misdemeanor and the statutes of limitations have gone, right? So we're talking about two misdemeanors here that are being construed in a way that causes a felony count. So it's like, take it how you want, but it is what the statute says, is what I'm trying to prove here.
Fair point, but the conspiracy itself is the crime.
That's correct.
So the argument would be threatening to murder someone is a crime. Murdering someone is a different crime. My point is, the government has never proven there was another crime.
Well, remember, we're showing the intent. You don't have to prove another crime. You just have to prove there was intent for another crime.
Right. I understand that. So my point would be the unprecedented case where they upgraded a misdemeanor to a felony to use against Trump, and just moving beyond this, we will also face the unprecedented nature of Trump's DOJ attempting to go after in any way possible. Maybe even it's just to jam up the people who receive these pardons, Fauci being the principal example. They will use, I don't know, circuitous legal means to go after.
When did Fauci ever do anything wrong? I don't even know. I forgot the allegations there. Like, do people think that he coordinated with China to release this as like a bioweapon? Is that what people think now? I don't know.
Some way.
There are felony statutes on money laundering and fraud, where if you have a crime of reporting violation, transactional reporting violation, a seemingly minor offense, but if it's used to do money laundering or fraud, then that too would raise the offense level, just like in Trump's case.
And it would raise statute of limitations if we're talking about comparables here. The main utility of bringing this other crime in as a subcrime to upgrade this to a felony is to satisfy the statute of limitations. Like, that's all we're talking about here. Otherwise, he would have just been charged with the crime itself. And that's why we have a jury. The jury can decide if he had the necessary intent or the necessary, criminal mindset to actually deserve this second crime. That's why we have a jury. It does not mean that our justice system went off the rails and is, guilty until proven innocent. That's absolutely not what's happening here.
So but there are other examples where, but I see your problem is that you don't like this whole area where unless you can